What if I told you that the launch of your clothing brand isn't nearly as important as you think it is in your head right now? I launched my own clothing brand about 8 years ago, and I've still been running it to this day. And I remember before the launch of my brand, getting so excited about it, thinking it was just gonna absolutely go to the moon right when I launched, and putting in all this work for the big launch day. And what I realized after I launched was that is when the real work begins. What I'm gonna share with you in this video are 7 things to do when you launch your clothing brand that I wish I had known when I first started up my brand. These are things that will truly get you in the right mindset, get you to understand how to truly make this work for your brand over time in the long run, and I can't wait to share it with you. Here it is. Apparel Success is sponsored by my buds over at BrandCrowd. BrandCrowd's a logo maker tool. You type in the name of the logo that you want to have made, hit enter, thousands of logos will come up. You choose the logo that you like, then you can edit and refine that logo as long as you want for free until it's perfect. This is a hundo P design I made for my own clothing brand using BrandCrowd. If you're interested, head over to brandcrowd.com/apparel success and you can get up to 66% off at checkout. All right, so the very first thing that you want to do when you're launching your clothing brand is focus on staging your brand well on social media and on your website. I heard a stat somewhere that 9 out of 10 people will judge the credibility of your brand based on the quality of your website alone. And I would extend this out to even your social media accounts. When you first launch, go out with your friends and take pictures in your clothing with multiple people. This will increase the social proof of your brand. You can share that on your social media, and it will give your brand a bit of momentum and create this positive feedback loop. When people see that your brand already has customers, it increases the value of your brand and it makes it more likely for people to want to jump on board. The worst look for a clothing brand is when you just start out, you have absolutely 0 followers, you've got no following, nobody knows about you. And so anything that you can do to increase the perception of your brand and to give it more credibility right from the beginning will be super helpful for you to get sales right out of the gate. So really spend a lot of your time designing your website as best as you possibly can so that there are no spelling mistakes. Everything is nice and smooth. The checkout process is nice, because this is going to be huge for how people are perceiving your brand, whether or not you're legit. And you want to do the same thing with your social media accounts. So make sure everything looks as best as you possibly can before you launch. The second thing to do when you launch your clothing brand that is very hard to do if you've never done this before, but if you can pull it off, will truly separate your brand from all the others and likely get you to the results that you're aiming at much quicker than most brands that are first starting, is to not focus on the results and on the sales when you first get started, but to practice discipline on social media and with your marketing strategies. There's this thing with new clothing brands where they tend to think that the launch of their brand is way more important than it actually is. They think that when they launch their brand, as long as it goes really well, that's going to send some ripple effect out into the universe where all of a sudden their brand's just going to go word of mouth like crazy, and it's going to spread into the future and have this quadratic effect that's going to leave them super successful. And that's all that they ever really needed to do. When in reality, what's way more important is building those habits and sticking to those consistent behaviors every single day that will compound themselves over time. You have this incredible opportunity right when you first start up your clothing brand to have a strategy and to stick to it consistently very well right from the beginning. This is something that, I wish I could go back in time and have done right out of the gates. If I had known this, it would have saved me a ton of time with my brand. But instead, what most clothing brands do is they launch their brand, they get really focused on how many sales they're making, and then when they're not making sales, they get really down on themselves. They give up on their marketing strategies. They kind of just give up on everything that they were doing, and they lose faith in the process. And so you really want to practice having faith in the process, sticking to the process even when there are no results, and that's going to lead you to getting those results into the future. The third thing to do when you start up your brand, and I promise these are going to get better and better until the end of this video, is you need to have a long-term vision. Even massive success right at the beginning for your brand doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to continue into the future and that you're going to have this just never-ending success. You want to force yourself to have a much longer time horizon for the success of your brand and to have this patience around it. This is what Whole Strength on TikTok and on Instagram did so well right from the beginning, and this is why he reached well over $1 million in sales in his first 16 months, is when he launched, he wasn't all caught up in the results. What he did instead is he stuck to his process and getting his message out there, and he was just extremely consistent. He built a system on posting content on TikTok and on Instagram that he stuck to over time, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and it's all of that work that compounds on itself that gets you better and better and better results every single month into the future. So make it a goal for yourself to set a content schedule that you stick to for the first 6 months to 12 months for your brand, that you don't waver on even if you're not getting very many sales for your brand. Like if in the first month for your brand, you're not getting very many sales, you don't just give up. You stick to the process because you have faith that, you know, maybe in 3 months, in 6 months, all of this will come to fruition. And it's those brands that end up seeing it through and getting those final results that they're looking for. A great metaphor for this is in boxing. A lot of the boxers that come out with all of their energy in the first couple of rounds, they burn out. And it's the boxers that are more patient, they have the longer term vision for the round, they block all those shots in the first round that end up just schooling them in the 6th, 7th, 8th round when that person's all burnt out and you've had this really patient approach to winning the game. The fourth thing to do when you're launching your clothing brand is to focus on customer engagement. Spend a lot of time on social media engaging with anybody who's showing interest in your brand. If people are leaving comments, if people are dropping likes on your pictures on Instagram or on TikTok, write back and engage with them. Talk to them in the DMs, offer them a discount code, say you're just getting started and that you really appreciate them showing interest in your brand or in your content. Even in the real world, in our first couple of months when we did in-person events and we were showing up at pop-up events, actually getting to meet your customers, shake hands with them, get to know them, and do all of that customer engagement will go such a long way, not only in you understanding your customer avatar a lot better and understanding exactly who you're selling to, but actually having these really sort of loyal customers right from the beginning that help you build that foundation and will be repeat customers for you into the future. The fifth thing to do when you're first launching your brand is in those first 30 days, keep a really close eye on your website conversion rate. Your website conversion rate is going to be the most realistic feedback for you to decide if your clothing brand needs to be changed up or needs to be tweaked a bit. A relatively good conversion rate for clothing brands is between 2 to 5%. What this means is that for every 100 people that you get to your website, you should hopefully be getting at least 2 orders on your website. And if you're driving 500, 1,000 people to your site and you haven't had any sales come in for your brand at all, this is an indicator that you're either driving the wrong traffic to your site or there's something about your brand that's making it not appealing yet and you need to increase the value of your brand or fix the product market fit of your brand. So keep a close eye on that conversion rate, and if it gets out of control where you've driven thousands of people to your website and you don't have sales yet, this is an indicator that you need to make some changes and you need to shake things up a bit. The sixth thing to do when you're launching your clothing brand is when you launch your brand, you may want to already start planning for future seasonal collections. Like in Canada here, we have 4 different seasons. Like we've got a true summer, a true fall, really cold winter, and then a spring. And each of these collections will have maybe hoodies versus t-shirts versus tank tops and just different items that you want to release. When we launched our clothing brand, we launched in May, just in time for summer. And it was really great that we had already started planning for a hoodie release in the fall with a new design on it. And it was actually that hoodie release in the fall where we finally started to gain some traction and we finally started to get some sales from strangers. So you may want to launch your brand and already start thinking about how are we going to evolve this? How are we going to come out with new collections into the future? And the 7th thing to focus on when you're launching your clothing brand is adapting your content strategies and being flexible with what you're doing on social media. If for a month you've been posting 3 times a day, the same content, and it's not really getting any views, nothing has really landed for you after about a month or so, then stick to the consistency, keep the consistency there, but maybe it's time to change up your content or experiment with some different types of content that you can release for your brand. And being adaptable, being flexible to changing and doing more of what's working and just dropping old plans that you had and switching because maybe there's a new social media that comes out or maybe there's a new type of content that's trending will really help you stay on top of things, and keeping your finger on that pulse will just help you so much when you're first getting started. Those are the things that I'd focus on if I were starting up a new clothing brand. I think that they're way more important than optimizing for the launch day itself. And this may be controversial, it may be different from how most people view things when they're first getting started, but I've just seen that the true success comes from the compound effect and doing things over time. And I hope that these things that I've shared with you will truly help you get the results that are rare, that only the 1% of clothing brands that start up get, and I hope that that helps. We've got over 100 clothing brands inside of the Apparel Success Mastermind, which is a monthly subscription where you get access to all my courses, you get access to a community of clothing brand owners, exclusive live streams, and direct access to me. If you're interested, you can learn more at apparelsuccessmastermind.com, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.